Hi, welcome back to the Knitweekend YouTube channel. I'm Haley. I am an avid knitter located in Nashville, Tennessee, and I've just started a podcast. So we have one full-length episode under our belt and one mini episode. So this is going to be mini episode number 2. I just wanted to start by, first of all, saying that I am so touched by the outpouring of encouragement and comments that I have gotten across all platforms, whether that be on YouTube or Instagram. How many of you have added me as a friend on Ravelry? I started this YouTube channel because I wanted a more depth of connection in the knitting community and a more personal interaction. And I couldn't be more pleased with kind of the conversations that we've been having in the past couple of weeks. So today's mini episode, I just thought we would do a little subscriber kind of comment question chat. So I've selected some of the comments that I've had over the full episode and the mini episode, and I just thought we would sit here and have a chat about those topics. I'll share my thoughts with you. So this is more of like a variety episode, I guess. The first comment, actually many comments that I've received, you've shared how amazed you are at what I've been able to knit in just 2 years. It's impressed me as well. I think maybe a little bit if it is in my blood. My grandmother was an avid crocheter. She passed away when I was 9 and I didn't get the opportunity to learn from her, but I feel like in my knitting moments, she's definitely there beside me and guiding my hands along. Also, I should share that I have tried to find a creative outlet for years. I've tried illustration, painting, and it's never seemed to quite click. So I think when the knitting came to the foreground, or I discovered knitting, it really just became a full-fledged obsession almost. That's maybe a negative connotation, but just a really strong passion. And luckily I have supportive family and husband who have just encouraged me along the way. But I want to show you where I started. And that is with this bookmark. This is the first thing that I ever knit. Look at that seed stitch error right there. This is a bookmark that I gave to my husband. I actually knitted them for my whole family. And this is where I started. So before I did wearables, right here, which I think this took me several hours to knit, I should add. And if you'd like to see kind of like a rundown of my early wearable knits, some of them are a little embarrassing to look back at now, make a comment below. Maybe I'll do that in another separate mini episode. So anyway, if you're out there, you can, and you're just starting out, you can never start too small. Just start somewhere, right? A bookmark, this is not blocked, I can tell. And now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, maybe I will felt this, because that might be a fun felting experiment. I've been wanting to felt, but I haven't quite gotten into that yet. So maybe this is the place to start. So thank you for all those kind comments about how much I have progressed in the past 2 years. And let's kind of jump into some other comments. You're going to see me looking down a lot more today because I've got your comments on my iPad here. This is from Queen's Yarn Boutique. And she said, I love your sweater, but all I can stare at is your pressed flowers shawl. So my first mini that I did on the Urus sweater, I was wearing my pressed flowers shawl in that video. It is here. Yeah, so she really admired that. I thought I would take a moment to tell you a little bit about this pattern. I'm sure you've seen this pattern. It's everywhere. It's traditionally knit in, I think, spin cycle yarn, a color changing yarn. But a dear friend of mine from Instagram sent me 2 skeins of linen quill. This is twig brown and rose granite or granite rose. I can't remember exactly which order those go in. And she sent these to me just as a sweet little gift. the moment that I pulled them out of the mailbox, I knew exactly that they were going to have to be a pressed flower shawl. So this shawl was, it's mosaic knitting, which if you've not done color work before is a really fantastic place to start. What that essentially means is that you're only knitting with one color per row. The other color in the row is a slip stitch. So let's see, can you see there? The color blows out, but you can kind of see the slip stitches there. Linen quill is a fingering weight yarn. This pattern was originally designed in a DK weight yarn. So mine is a little smaller than, okay, we're gonna pause on the pressed flower shawl. One of the comments said, please properly introduce your cat next time. Since she is down here batting at the shawl, I will go ahead and introduce her. This is Sweet Georgia Brown. She goes by Georgie. She also goes by No quite frequently. And I guess now she's looking at the birds instead of the camera. So that's Georgie. You are going to see her making many appearances, I'm sure. She is clearly going to be the star of this podcast, and I don't hate that. Okay, back to this. So my shawl is quite a bit smaller than what the pattern suggests. For me, I love that because I can wrap it more like a scarf. It fits nicely under my jacket. I'm not much of a shawl wearer, so for me, a scarf size was perfect. I knit this on 3.75 millimeter needles, I believe. You can check my Ravelry to double check that. And then the original pattern called for, I think, 4 millimeter needles. So I did go down a size. Little secret on this, I did not gauge swatch this. What I did instead was I knitted this first set of flower repeats on the recommended needle size. I did not like the fabric. I went ahead and put that on, you know, like a cord and blocked it, waited for it to dry, double checked it. Still did not like the fabric it created, so then I just decided to go down a needle size. And that's something that I do pretty commonly on these types of projects, where I'll just start the project, and if I don't really think it's going to make much of a difference, which on a shawl it's really not going to, you can't even tell. Can you tell? Those first two flowers are a different needle size? Not really. So that's what I did, and just kind of a little shortcut for you there. Anyway, that's the pressed flower shawl in linen quill, twig brown and rose granite rose. I'm sure it'll have it on their website. All right, moving along to the next comment. Okay, so this is a pretty important correction, which I truly appreciate. The yarn that I spoke about in the last episode is actually called Yell-HOLT, pronounced Yell-HOLT in English. And so thank you for pointing that out to me. I mentioned in the first episode that I'm used to writing, not used to speaking. So I'm probably going to mess up some pronunciations, and I welcome the corrections there. Speaking of that yarn, I got a message today asking if the yarn is soft and can it be worn next to skin. So again, this is I don't have it handy with me, but it's in episode 1 and also my last mini podcast, the Yell-HOLT craft yarn that I used on my Euro sweater. And my answer to that is, for me, it is next to skin soft, but my next to skin soft may not be the same as yours. So if you're trying to decide whether or not you want to invest in a sweater's quantity of yarn, I have the best tip for you. It's not my tip personally. It's in Slow Knitting. This is, let's see if we get it to focus there. There we go. This is a gorgeous book by Hannah Thiessan. She's actually located in the Nashville area, so near me, local to me, and she suggested if you're going to make an investment in a really great yarn, but you aren't entirely sure if you want to knit a whole garment out of it, order 1 or 2 skeins that you can knit a smaller project out of. So if you're going to knit a sweater that's going to sit close to your neck, maybe you buy a couple skeins and knit a cowl, or knit a beanie or something, so that you can tell if that sweater is one that you can wear next to your skin. And I thought that was a fabulous tip, and so that's what I've done most recently, is if I have yarn shops that I typically order from online, since most of the yarns that I choose aren't available to me locally. And I just kind of think a couple projects ahead and order a skein or 2 in with whatever sweaters quantity I'm ordering at the time. So that's what I would do. If you're not sure if you can wear a yarn, order a skein, order 2, knit something else up. And if you want a lovely book all about really the craft of knitting, Slow Knitting is a fantastic read. Paula commented that I should block my husband's sweater prior to giving it to him. Paula and I are obviously both big fans of blocking. She said that it'll look better and then you can adjust the length. And I couldn't agree with her more wholeheartedly on those 2 items. As you can see behind me, I currently do have a finished object on my blocking mat. You'll have to tune into the next full-length episode to hear more about that. So I am also an avid blocker. I just have a small space. We don't have a large home, and there's no place that I can possibly lay a sweater out for a couple days to let it dry without him seeing it. So that's why that one is not being blocked yet, but it definitely will be blocked, because I 100% agree that it is going to help the garment fit better, especially since it is like a real 100% wool. I have a question from Stacy about my rug sweater that I wore in episode 1. I have knitted that sweater in Plotulopi, and Stacy wanted to know should she go with a 100% wool yarn for this project? And the answer to that is yes. I would 100% use a yarn wool. Don't use superwash. It is already an oversized sweater to begin with in one size. And it is meant to have some density of fabric and drape if you look at how the designer has it photographed in the pattern. So I would say definitely use 100% wool. Look at something in a bulky or Aran weight. Aran weight if you want it to be a little smaller, bulky if you want the size that the pattern suggests. And I've seen a lot of folks knit it in Alafoslopi. That is going to be a denser fabric than what I chose in Plotulopi, but it looks really nice in that too. But yeah, do use 100% wool. And any ideas on how to soften the wool, she asked next. So with that, the best way that I have found to soften 100% wool, and this is a new trick to me, is in your blocking process. I have just recently discovered the joy of actually blocking in lukewarm water. I think I mentioned this in my mini episode, but if you're not interested in the Euros, you might have skipped that. But yeah, so I have taken to blocking my woolly wools by putting them in a lukewarm water and leaving them there until the water completely cools. So that can be several hours as opposed to just the 15 to 20 minutes that most patterns call for. Thank you for the kisses. Thank you, but I'm talking. So those several hours of blocking, okay, thank you. The several hours of blocking really help to open the stitches and soften the fabric. So if you're knitting with a woolly wool, that is my new favorite trick for softening, straight off the blocking mat instead of having to wait for it to soften up when you wear it. Okay, Winky messaged me on Instagram. She wants you to know there is a fantastic Purl Soho tutorial on wrap and turn technique. In episode 1, I mentioned that I had ended up with a bunch of holes around my husband's neckline because it was my first time working a wrap and turn. More of a German short row girl personally. I also like Japanese short rows. Wrap and turns, not my best skills so far, but Winky says there's a fabulous Purl Soho tutorial. So I have added that to my playlist of knitting tips. And when you're done with this video, you can just pop over there and view the tutorial that Winky recommends. So thank you for that recommendation. Lisa commented that she, and I actually had a couple people comment on this, that she really loved the variety of patterns that I was showing, and not just showing patterns from the top 2 Danish designers that are out there. This is a huge passion of mine, is to really look for some lesser known designers and explore different options when it comes to a raglan sweater. There's any number of raglan sweaters out there. So how do you choose the right one for you? Or cardigans, there's a ton of cardigans. So just really taking the time to explore. So a couple ways that you can really broaden your scope of pattern designers if you're interested. One is by using the Ravelry search function in a different way. So what I like to do is, if I have a particular yarn that I want to use or a gauge, you can search Ravelry for patterns that use that yarn or that gauge. And that's gonna just kind of open up a whole new landscape of designers for you. You can also search by fabric characteristics. So if you want a lace garment, or you want a cable or color work garment, you can just use the search filters on the side of Ravelry and narrow down to what you are looking for. Sometimes I actually use multiple searches, because otherwise you end up with 3,000 results and feeling completely overwhelmed. The other thing that I would say is, I was off social media for the longest time, I think 5 years. And then I started an Instagram dedicated to my knitting. That has been the biggest help in helping me. Really? I can't come up with better words. That has been a huge source of inspiration for me in finding new designers. And even if you're not a social media person, you can create an account and save things to your wish list to go back to later. Which brings me to what I thought I would do is share with you a few of my most recent saves on my Instagram. And I will just put some photos up here for you. So the first one is the Sailor Gainsey, and this is just a lovely textured sweater with a mock neck. It's really classic. I think it's gorgeous. The next one, oh gosh, I'm so scared to pronounce this, Biche et Bouche, and this is their vest number 69. It might also just be number 69. It is a really awesome color work vest. I hope you're seeing these colors and enjoying them as much as I have. The next one is the Cocoa Swirl Cardigan. And I'm really digging textured knits right now, as you can probably tell from what I've shown in my past couple episodes. They just kind of keep you interested and keep you going, though they do require a little bit of brain work. So I think this one is great, and using a yarn that I've been wanting to try, which is by Handvaerksgarn. So those are a few of my saves recently on Instagram. If that's something that you're interested in, me doing more on the regular basis to introduce you to other patterns and designers, then leave a comment below. Maybe I will make that a regular segment on the full-length episodes. Moving along. So Stacy also asked what would be my recommendation for a first knitted sweater. That is a great question. I told her that I have a couple pattern designers that I think are really geared toward beginner sweater knitters with lots of good explanations. Those two are Ozetta, Haley Smedley, and also the Knit Purl girl, Sophie Hemming. So both of them have fabulous, well-written patterns that I think you'll be able to find something to suit you. Ozetta, I'm specifically thinking of the Lodge sweater. I've not knitted this, but my friend Kat did, and that was one of her first sweaters. And then the Knit Purl girl, I'm thinking of the Aosta sweater. So if you're tired of the basic stockinette, want to just try something a little bit extra, the Aosta sweater line is great. I knitted one of the cardigans. very early on in my knitting. And then one that I forgot to tell her about that I am wearing now is the Wave of Change pullover. So this one, oh, goodness, I am forgetting her name. I will have to link it. But yeah, so this one was one of the first sweaters that I really dabbled with changing the pattern a little bit to what I wanted it to be. So I had a slightly different gauge and I was using a completely different yarn. I've knitted up in Plodulopi. So you can tell I love a rustic wool. And so yes, this was one of the early ones. This brings me to another comment. And I can't recall who said this, but I had a couple people mention that it'd be helpful if I would stand up so that you can see the full garment. The challenge with this is my camera is sitting over my knees. So me standing up is quite an operation in the middle of a podcast. What I will make an effort to do instead is maybe just put some B-roll. So if I've been successful in that, then you will be seeing B-roll of me in my Wave of Change pullover popped up right now. Please don't judge the sweatpants. It's a Sunday. All right, so that's the questions that I kind of have had queued up to answer for you today. I feel like I've probably gone a little bit over my usual 15-minute window, but just a quick update, you will have in the next full-length episode at least one finished object to show, yay. And there will be a new cast on, and you'll have to come back to hear more about those things. So I so appreciate you spending more time with me today, and I look forward to chatting to you again. So if you've liked what you see, subscribe, like, comment, and we'll see you next time.